10 WWE wrestlers you didn't actually know appeared in WCW. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Number 10. Sable. Sable was one of the most popular female stars of the 90s, and when Sable departed WWE in 99, it looked set that the former women's champion would sign a contract with WCW. Sable would even appear on camera on an episode of Nitro, and although WCW weren't going to be legally able to use the Sable name due to copyright reasons, she still had a great look, and WCW could have easily presented her as a star of their female division. There have been tons of rumors over the years as to why Sable didn't end up signing for the promotion. When she appeared on camera in 1999, it was rumored that she was still under WWE contract, and this consequently would breach her contract. It was also claimed by some WCW fans that Sable's appearance was edited out of future replays of Nitro, and it was rumored that WCW later claimed that Sable wasn't invited to the show, she simply bought a ticket. This latter rumor doesn't hold much merit, as Sable seemed to have security at the side of her, which wouldn't have been the case if she was in attendance as a fan. Number 9. Jamie Noble. Most wrestling fans know Jamie Noble for his work during the Ruthless Aggression era in WWE. Noble was a tremendous in-ring talent, and he's been signed to WWE in a producer role for many years, a role in which he's said to be a natural at. But before Noble would end up in WWE, he would have an often forgotten about run in WCW. His run would come during the final years of the promotion's existence, and he portrayed various gimmicks, including the infamous Jamie-san. Whilst Noble's WCW run wasn't exactly anything to write home about, he was impressive from an in-ring perspective, and it was evident that he had a ton of potential. This potential was realized when Noble became one of the names that WWE offered a contract in 2001. Number 8. Luna Vachon. Luna Vachon is considered by many to be one of the most underrated female stars of all time. There was something magnetic about Vachon, and there's a reason why fans still talk about her body of work. In 1997, Vachon, who was mostly known and celebrated for her time in WWE and ECW, would embark on a brief run in WCW. This run would see her feud with Medusa, and Vachon and Medusa would even have a pay-per-view showdown at the Slamboree event. By late 97, Vachon was back in WWE, and the WCW run just became a distant memory for fans. In fact, Vachon only had one televised match in WCW and had 3 matches on an NWO vs WCW takeover tour. The run was that brief. Number 7. Rhino. The War Machine Rhino has had run-ins in virtually every wrestling company ever. Rhino was a major player for ECW, and he's considered one of the biggest stars to ever grace the promotion. In WWE, whilst Rhino was never world champion, he had numerous incredibly memorable runs, and he won multiple titles in the promotion. Finally, in TNA, Rhino was a key player in getting TNA recognized by the wider fan base, and Rhino has and continues to deliver some fantastic work in the company. As well as these promotions, Rhino has also had a run in WCW, and it came early on during his time as a pro wrestler. He would be booked to be an enhancement talent, and this was a great role for a name that had only been wrestling for a short period. Rhino would use the name Terry Richards, and he would be booked to lose to names such as Jim Duggan and Road Warrior Hawk. Number 6. Road Dogg. It's really hard to imagine Road Dogg in another promotion outside of WWE. Of course, he had a dreadful stint in TNA, yet it's in everyone's best interest for that to be forgotten about. Before he ended up in WWE, Road Dogg would have an extended run in WCW, and for this run, he would use the name Brian Armstrong. According to Road Dogg, although he didn't have a guaranteed contract in the company, he did consider the run as his big break. Road Dogg got to work with a number of legends whilst in the promotion, and this naturally set him up with the confidence to succeed when he would go to WWE years later. Number 5. Rob Van Dam. Between 1992 to 1993, WCW had a name on their roster that could have been a major player throughout the 90s, and that name in question was Rob Van Dam. RVD was new to wrestling at this stage, yet he still had immense talent, and it was obvious that RVD was a legitimate star. Due to Bill Watts not liking the name RVD, he would be forced to use the odd name of Robbie V, which didn't exactly scream main eventer. But WCW never realized the true potential that RVD had, and this is what he had to say about his WCW run on his podcast. I wasn't happy in WCW, but what really sucked was when I came back from Japan. Bill Watts is no longer the booker. Now the man in charge is Ole Anderson, and Ole Anderson didn't like Robbie V as much as Bill Watts. So I went from having wins over guys like that to basically either getting squashed on TV, or I was giving tryouts and dark matches for guys that were coming up from different parts of the world and stuff. So it was like, you know what, I don't want to stay here anymore. And I told my Graham that, who was the agent, and he said, Well, let me see what I can do. The next week he offered me an extra $50 if I stayed. And the thing is, the whole time I had this feeling I wasn't going to want to stay. So I never signed the contract. I kept losing the contract, much like forgetting to bring the ECW Television Championship belt back to the shows. The interesting thing about RVD and WCW is that RVD almost rejoined the promotion in '97, and it was even rumored that WCW wanted him to portray the infamous Glacier persona. Number 4. Miko Satura. Miko Satura is considered to be one of the most influential female wrestlers to ever lace up a pair of boots, and it's only over the past few years that WWE have acknowledged just how important of a name she is in the world of professional wrestling. Before Satura embarked on a run in WWE and became NXT UK champion, she had successful runs in every promotion she went to, and she even had a run in WCW. Her run lasted between 1996 to 1997, and she was brought in through WCW's working relationship with Japan. WCW didn't seem to know what level of star they had, as Satura was never chosen to be a central figure in their women's division, which is a big shame, and it was only a matter of time until the business relationship between the two sides ended and Satura's WCW run would come to an end. Number 3. Edge. WWE Hall of Famer Edge had a total of 2 matches for WCW in the mid-90s, and one of them was against Meng. Despite wrestling one of the toughest wrestlers on the planet, this didn't put the future rated R superstar off wrestling, and although he was using the odd name of Damien Stryker, he was able to impress people and get his name out there. Eventually, after taking the advice of Bret Hart, Edge would send an old-school audition tape to WWE, and the rest, they say, is history. The interesting thing about Edge in WCW is that although he only had 2 official matches for the promotion, he was officially the last ever WCW US champion, as he was the reigning champion at the 2001 Survivor Series event, which was the night the title was unified with the Intercontinental Championship. Number 2. Owen Hart. Imagine an alternative universe in which Owen Hart signs for WCW in the late 90s. It was incredibly close to happening. In fact, after Hart had numerous matches for the promotion, a contract was on the table. However, Hart had zero interest in moving to Atlanta, so he ultimately made the call to sign with WWE. A lot of Hart's work for WCW took place on live events, and this was probably the right call from WCW at the time, as Hart was just a few years into his pro wrestling journey, and he would be booked to work with names such as Rip Rogers and Bobby Eaton. There was a strong portion of fans who wanted Hart to jump ship alongside Bret in '97, and this was a feeling that was shared by members of the Hart family. However, due to Owen still being under contract and WWE having no interest in releasing him, this would have never been a possibility. With that being said, both Harts in WCW in the late 90s would have made for some compelling viewing. And number 1. AJ Styles. Whilst the final years of WCW were filled with turmoil, they had some phenomenal talent on their roster at the time, and one of these names they had was AJ Styles. Just before AJ ended up in TNA, he would be part of the final few months of WCW's existence, as he would be mainly used in the Cruiserweight division, and the crowd reacted to him like he was something special. And even a 2001 WCW audience knew that AJ had a lot to offer. Whilst his run was brief in the promotion, Eric Bischoff did have meaningful plans for him, and if WCW wasn't purchased by WWE, Bischoff would have built on the Cruiserweight division. This is what he had to say in regard to the wrestling legend on his podcast. I'll be honest, I didn't have my eye on AJ Styles at the time he was in WCW. So I can tell you that I analysed him and watched him and thought he was going to be a great fit for the Cruiserweight division. I wanted to bring in more Cruiserweight type guys. I wanted to bring more of that style in. Jimmy Yang came in along with Shannon Moore and some of the other guys that were part of the late Cruiserweight recruitment, and I like Jimmy. Jimmy was a good friend of my son Garrett. I think they went to school together, so I was a big fan of Jimmy Yang's. I certainly would have kept him around, and I certainly would have kept AJ Styles around and built on that Cruiserweight division. But there you have it, folks. 10 WWE wrestlers you didn't actually know appeared in WCW. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.